All right, next question is from Eric0212 on Instagram. He's got two questions here. First one is, what do you do during quarantine? Well, for that, Eric, I encourage you to go watch my previous video. I did kind of a day in the life during quarantine, so you can check out what I've kind of been doing for my first week here over in that video. Second question, are you confident that the Lions are going to win another trophy?
打击出去，这一棒在左半边，苏日杰掌握到飞球落点，完成接杀，比赛结束。
Of course, I think we were kind of the underdog last year, kind of made our way through the season and ended up winning the second half, and obviously took down the brothers in the finals. It was an incredible series, but I think going into this year, we're obviously now the favorites. You're the defending champions, so everybody's coming for you. You got to protect that championship. So I'm excited for it and looking forward to another good year this year and bring home another championship. Moving on, next question is Oscar212_06 on Instagram. Oscar says, would you like to stay in Taiwan for 5 or more years? It's a good question, Oscar. I'm looking forward to this year, my second year, first full season. I'm kind of just taking it year by year. We'll see what happens. Obviously trying to have another good year this year, and yeah, that's kind of a decision at the end of the season, goes into every year. So would I love to be here for 5 or more years? Of course, but we got to see what happens over the next 9 months, and yeah, hopefully have a long career here in Taiwan and make the Uni Lions proud. All right, next question from Instagram. It's Israel M. Gonzalez. Says, what was going through your mind when you were summoned to close out Game 7 of the Taiwan series? Obviously, that was an adrenaline rush unlike anything I've had in a long time. Game 7, 8th inning, pitched the 8th and the 9th. That's what every kid dreams of, coming in those situations. So obviously on very short rest after Game 5, it was, but having the home run, I believe in the bottom of the 7th, was a big home run to put us up 3 runs. So there was a little bit of a cushion, took a little bit of pressure off. But that was just an exciting game, an exciting whole series. It was a great series by us and the brothers. They were obviously great competition, and to be able to close it out was, I think once the last out was made, I blacked out for probably 30 seconds during the whole celebration. It kind of just went nuts. And then before you know it, we're out in the outfield cheering with the fans, and the whole night was incredible. So to be able to close that game out and win the championship with my great teammates was an awesome experience. Next up, we've got Sayo Powan. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but he says, how do you think about Taiwan series Game 5? Of course, again, that was a great game. Personally and for the team, we were able to turn the series around. Obviously, we were down 3-1 in the series, so it was win or go home. Obviously, a stressful game, but it was great. I think the first 3 or 4 innings, I wasn't my best. I was kind of working through some hits and some guys on base. Then it seemed like after that, maybe 4th, 5th inning, kind of hit cruise control and was able to ride that to the end of the game. Obviously, throwing 9 innings shutout against the brothers, who are a great team, was a huge thrill. Something I've never done before, throwing a complete game shutout in the playoffs. So to be able to turn the series around, I was really excited for both myself and the team. Then obviously to go on win Game 6 and again in Game 7 was just an incredible week, an incredible series, and something I'll never forget. All right, we've got 62 Allen 516 asking, what's your strategies to tackle the hot weather in the summer when you play in Taiwan? That's a great question, because for those of you that don't know, it gets extremely hot here in Taiwan. I don't think I've ever been in a hotter place in my life in the middle of the summer. July, August, even September. It is high 30s every day with a lot of humidity. It is just a very hot place. So it is something you have to learn to adapt to and learn how to control. It's luckily by the time our games start at 6:30, you maybe have an inning or 2 in the sun, and then the sun sets, and it's still hot, but at least the sun isn't beating on you anymore, so you get a little bit of a break. But I think the biggest thing is just to learn to manage your workload during the day, during practice, during batting practice and whatnot. You really have to monitor how much you're doing and how much you're outside, just because it is so hot and it'll drain you pretty quick. So I think monitoring your workload and also staying hydrated is something that I really had to focus on last year, drinking a lot of water and taking some supplements from the team to really combat that dehydration. So great question. It's definitely a battle for, I know a lot of the foreign players battle with it here. I'm not sure about the local guys, if they're used to it or if some of them battle with it, but it is definitely extremely hot and something you have to get used to, but great question. All right, we got another good question here that's very specific to Taiwan. It's what's your strategies when you're in the league, which only has 4 teams? Yeah, so luckily this year we have a 5th team, which I think is going to be great for the league. Maybe makes the schedule a little weird, but I think 5-6 teams would be great for this league here in Taiwan. Obviously, yeah, with 4 teams, it's tough because you play the same guys a lot, and they get to know you, you get to know them, and I think the strategy is, at least for me, it's you always have to be adapting. You always have to be willing to change a little bit here and there, because if you go out and do the same thing over and over and over again, unless you're extremely dominant, they're going to clue into that. Hitters are going to kind of make an adjustment, start to put up better at bats against you, and then once they do that, if you don't have the ability to kind of switch and do things a little different again, you don't have to completely change what you do, but to be able to make little adjustments here and there, some strategy changes, just always being willing to change a little bit and make some adjustments, I think is huge in a league with only 4 teams last year, 5 teams this year. I think that's the key. So great question, and definitely specific to the CPBL. All right, first question from somebody back home in Canada. It's Bennett Moore. Bennett says, what are your pitch grips and what cues are you thinking about when you throw them? So I'll quickly go through my pitches, and some of them haven't changed in a long time, or ever really, and some of them are kind of an ongoing adjustment. So first of all, my 4-seam fastball. See if I can get it on camera here. I have the horseshoe goes on the index finger side, which is, I found a lot of guys don't do that anymore. A lot of guys go the other way with the horseshoe on the middle finger. I just like the way that my fingers lay on the seams here when I go that way compared to this way. That index finger doesn't quite reach that seam. So I prefer this way where both fingers can reach seams, and then my thumb is right underneath. And I really think, well, keeping these 2 fingers on top and driving down through the ball. That's the big thing for me, is keeping my arm high and coming down on top of the ball, pulling down through it to create kind of that backspin 4-seam. Another pitch that I've thrown for a long time, and it hasn't really changed too much, is my slider. Again, the horseshoe at the bottom, I ride my middle finger down that seam and index finger on top of that. And like I said earlier in the video, I think about more pressure on, the pressure kind of stays on the middle finger, but I think about that index finger also getting over the ball, and that kind of creates more action for me rather than just spinning with my middle finger like that. I put a little more emphasis on that index finger to really try to get over it and create that sideways action on my slider and some depth as well. Curveball, I basically go, so if my slider, find myself here, if my slider goes down the seam this way, my curveball, I go up the seam. So now the horseshoe is kind of on the back inside my hand there. Again, 2 fingers going into middle finger down that seam, and then again, it's the biggest difference between a slider and a curveball is wrist position. So when I try to come through on a curveball, I'm trying to have this part of my hand to the catcher, to the hitter, and really working on top of the ball and over it, try to create that top spin. Where a slider, when I come through, it's going to be a little bit further, a little bit more palm showing to the hitter and the catcher, and kind of working over and on the side of the ball rather than a curveball you're directly on top of it and trying to pull down. So that's the biggest difference. Grip, again, is more comfort than anything, trying to find your fingers on the ball. But I think the biggest thing with breaking pitches is wrist position at release point. So curveball, you're trying to get the kind of the meat of your hand there and tomahawk to the catcher, work over the ball. Whereas a slider, you got a little bit more palm facing, and you kind of work over and on the side of the ball to try to create a little bit more sweep. Curveball, you're going up and down. And then I used to throw a changeup back in the day. I've kind of lost my changeup over the last few years, so I've adjusted to a split finger, which I hold like this. So I basically take my 4-seam grip and I just split it a little deeper. And the big thing for me is having my middle finger hook on that seam there. Again, my thumb is underneath, and I'm not sure if you can see here, I keep a gap in between there. If I get cocked too far back in there where I close that gap, I don't seem to have the same action, and it kind of just spikes in the ground rather than coming in and then dropping at the plate. So again, it's basically just a split 4-seam fastball, and I hook that middle finger on the seam there. And again, I try to keep my arm high, hand on top of the ball, and pull down through it. And it seemed to be effective. It's still kind of a new pitch for me, and I'm still getting comfortable with it, learning with it, but it was effective for me last year, especially to all the left-handed hitters in this league. So yeah, it's something I'm continuing to adjust, but I think I've found kind of my base for that pitch and what I like to do with it. So great question, Bennett, and I hope that helps you. All right, next question is again on Instagram. It's Miss White KH. I am Taiwanese, and I also stayed in Songdo for 1 year. What do you think about the 2 cities you stayed in Taiwan and Korea, and your recommendations, restaurants, places, etc. for both cities? That's a good question, and kind of neat that we've spent some time in the same places. Obviously last year when I played for the SK Wyverns in Korea, we lived in Songdo, which is just outside of Incheon. Songdo is a very, very new city. Some really cool things about it, but it's really directed towards foreigners. It's one of the closest cities, basically your first stop from the airport. The airport's basically out on an island. Songdo is kind of the first city off that island, and because of that, they've really directed a lot of their restaurants and stores and hotels and whatnot towards foreign people and foreign business people. So Songdo was great for that reason, where it really didn't feel like you were overseas. It felt like I was back home in a city back home, maybe like Toronto. Found a lot of good American style restaurants there, and really any style food in the world. There was a lot of French food, stuff like that. It was great. So definitely didn't feel like I was overseas, but provided that little feel of home. Whereas now in Tainan, it's definitely a very Taiwanese city, I guess you would say. That's maybe limited foreigners, limited American food. There is still American food, but it's definitely not like Songdo was. But you definitely feel like you're in Taiwan or you're in Asia. It's a different culture. It's a different vibe than back home. So yeah, it's just kind of different. But again, that's not bad. It just you're really immersed in the culture, which provides its own unique opportunities and learning experiences and food. Obviously, the Taiwanese food is very highly praised. So yeah, they're just kind of 2 completely different cities. One is very new, modern, American, directed towards foreigners, and one is very local Taiwanese historic culture here in Tainan. So yeah, great question. All right, next question comes from YLT622 on Instagram. They say, hi, if you have time, where is the most site that you want to visit in Taiwan? I've heard a lot about the beaches here, and I have yet to visit one. So whether it's on the East Coast in Hualien or that kind of part of the country, or close to home here in Tainan, I've heard a lot about the beaches, and I love fishing. So maybe there's some fishing opportunities that we might be able to have. So that's something I plan to check out this year, and hopefully have some fun at the beaches and on the water. Next, we've got Mojito_King. Says, ever experience a game without a DH in any level you've played? How did that season go when you had to step up to the plate? I have not. I have not swung a bat in a game since high school, which is crazy. That's probably 9-10 years ago now. So I don't think I would be much good anymore with a bat in my hands. It's been a long time. I think 80 miles an hour would probably look pretty hard to me. It would probably get by me. So I have not hit since high school. I've not played in a game where I've had to hit for myself in professional baseball. So in high school, I was a decent hitter. I wasn't great. I liked to play first base. I was good defensively at first, but hitting was never my strong suit. Like I said, I was okay. I had some power, but I was never going to be a professional baseball player as a hitter. So really have focused on pitching for the last 9, 10, 11 years. So kind of glad I don't have to hit anymore. That's for sure. All right, next is from Henry177155. Says, which Canada national parks have you been to? And Henry, you're gonna be disappointed. I don't think I've been to a Canadian national park, which is incredible because I love the outdoors. I love fishing, hiking, doing that kind of stuff outdoors. So I just have not been I've not had time to really travel Canada too much. I've done a lot of national parks in the United States. I've done a lot of traveling in the United States. I've probably seen more of the United States than I have Canada, just in my time playing baseball and whatnot. So that's something I look forward to when retirement time comes for me from baseball, having more time at home and being able to explore Canada more and explore some of those national parks. I know there's some great parks, even in Taiwan, in Ontario, like Algonquin National Park. Really look forward to checking that out someday, and possibly go out west, maybe check out Banff or something like that, that are obviously world-renowned parks. So yeah, not a great answer for you, but that's something I definitely hope to see in the future. All right, next question from Canada is JHuddy06. I think I've met Jackson before at a few camps. So Jackson says, do you have any pitcher workouts for kids for stronger throws? That's a great question. I get that question a lot. I do a lot of pitching camps and individual lessons. So I think the biggest thing for kids is play catch. Play catch, stretch it out a little bit, learn to throw long toss. I think I'm not going to say the more you throw the better, because there is too much throwing, but I think a lot of kids don't maybe understand how beneficial just throwing is. Throwing is the best thing you can do to build up your arm strength. Obviously there are some exercises, there are some weight routines, but a lot of that, when you're a young kid, it's just throw with intent, throw with some focus behind what you're doing. And like I said, kind of start to stretch out how far you can throw, and before you know it, you'll be throwing 250, 300 feet by the time you're a teenager, a young adult. So I think playing catch with focus and starting to stretch out is one of the biggest things for kids to really build arm strength and see some jumps in their velocity and how hard they're throwing, as well as how good their arm feels. For me, nothing feels better for my arm than to throw. There'll be games I'll pitch the night before and throw 100 pitches plus, and the next day I have to throw. Obviously the arm doesn't feel good the next morning, but to be able to just get the arm moving again, get the shoulder moving, feel the ball come out of your hand, for me that breaks up all that soreness and starts that recovery process. So I do have a lot of exercises I do, some weight routines, which I can maybe get into in another video if it's something people want to see, but the biggest thing for me is playing catch and throwing and starting to stretch out your arm. So great question, Jackson.